Good evening, everyone. My name is Valeria Ochoa. I'm here representing Southern Caregiver Resource Center. We were invited to be here with all of you virtually. And by we, I mean myself and Rosario Reyes, who is a promotora out in the community. So what she does is that I specifically do presentations. I connect with our community, let them know what we are about, let caregivers know that there's help available within the San Diego County, and do a variety of different presentations that I'll touch base a little bit more towards the end of the presentation. And Rosario goes out to the community, travels all throughout San Diego County. She is the individual who community members connect with first. So I'm so appreciative to have her. I really appreciate it when I have a promotora with me, because they give a different perspective to the one that I have within the organization. On top of providing support, I always let them know that I'm thankful for their support, for them being here. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box, or feel free to unmute yourself, and I will be more than happy to, support you and get any of the questions that you have out of the way. As well as Rosario, sometimes when I do presentations, it's difficult for me to go back and forth between the chat box and the presentation. So once again, I was invited here to do a presentation on caring for the caregiver. This is the #1 most requested presentation here at Southern Caregiver Resource Center, and it's of no surprise because everything that we do within this organization is about the caregiver. We 100% highlight the importance of caring for the caregiver within Southern Caregiver Resource Center. Because whether you're a caregiver, or you've been a caregiver, you understand how difficult it can be to do it all on your own. The majority of the time, all of our clients, when they reach out to us, they let us know they are doing it all alone. So this is why we created this curriculum, this presentation, to really raise awareness on taking care of the caregiver and ways that we can support them and ways that they can create a plan to better go about their caregiving journey. Now, this is a somewhat short presentation. It's about 30 minutes, but hopefully you'll be able to take away these learning objectives as I speak to you today about how you can support the caregiver. We will identify ways of what it means to be a caregiver, what the role entails, and how to recognize the challenges that comes within, supporting this individual, supporting your loved one, or the care receiver. We will find ways to support what the caregiver needs, all while, of course, highlighting the importance of self-care and care for the caregiver. Let's kick it off by defining what a caregiver means. I often ask this question mostly when I do presentations in person and I have a crowd. And I always ask because I'm always curious to know and to pick other people's brains and see what their definition of what a caregiver is to them, what it means to them. And just to kick it out of the park, this is the generic definition: a person who provides direct care, whether it's for their children, an elderly individual, a chronically ill individual, or just offering some level of support for their loved one. We include and embedded this quote into the presentation because how true, it just speaks so much truth in this quote. There are 4 kinds of people in this world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. And I just absolutely love it because it just highlights how important caregivers are within, really within our world today. Aging is inevitable. Sometimes accidents happen. We are surprised with diagnosis, and oftentimes we are left with deciding, okay, who's going to be the caregiver, who's going to be the primary caregiver, who's going to step onto this role to support our loved one or to support me, who's going to be my caregiver. Which is why we have this presentation, because we really need to take care of the caregiver in order to adequately or offer better support to the patient or the care receiver. So as I go throughout this presentation, I want you to think about whether you're a caregiver, someone is supporting you, or you've been a caregiver, or you know someone, because I really encourage all of you, to take notes, jot down notes, and just spread the word on this information and about the resources that I'm about to, that I will provide at the end. Let's go over the types of caregivers. We define that a caregiver is someone who provides care to an individual. But oftentimes, whether you are a caregiver right now, we find ourselves most of the time being the full-time caregiver, but there's also part-time caregivers and long-distance ones as well. So what a full-time caregiver means is exactly what it says on there: full-time, 24/7. We are looking out for someone. We live with this individual, and when we wake up and go to sleep, we care for this individual and are on the constant go supporting our loved one. The part-time caregiver is someone that may not necessarily live with a care receiver. They may live within the same city, but they don't live in that same household with their loved one. So what that means is that they support them on a part-time basis, like going grocery shopping for them, taking them occasionally to doctor's appointments, maybe calling in and checking in. Okay, let's fill out this paperwork. We have some legal situations. Let me help you fill out these legal documents. But they help on a part-time basis. The long distance caregiver is an individual that lives from afar, maybe not necessarily in the same city, but in a different state. But they still, again, provide some level of care by filling out, again, legal documents, helping them make some payments online, ordering their medication online and having it delivered. And it's just done from a long distance. And what I want to point out is that, again, all of these do provide some level of care.
Sandra,
because
join the meeting.
Just because the part-time caregivers and the long-distance ones they're not providing a full-time support, that doesn't mean that they don't provide a level of care when they do. They're just as important as the full-time caregiver. But the reality is that at some point also, what they have in common is that they may pick up on these different roles. As caregivers, we do it all, and we become the cook. We become the financial advisor, the insurance advisor, helping our loved one, paying the bills, helping our loved one, navigate on what their caregiving plan is. Their caregiving plan is going to be. Okay, what kind of meals do they need? We need to develop, a schedule for the day. We pick up on a variety of different roles, and oftentimes it can be very difficult. And challenges come with with our experience in the role in general. Challenges such as the caregiver feels unprepared and trained, especially if you are stepping onto this plate for the first time, this new journey. It can be unfamiliar. It can be scary. Just face it, if your loved one has been diagnosed or newly diagnosed with something such as dementia, form of memory loss, for the sake of the group I'm in, for example, lupus, it can be difficult to understand the diagnosis, and our caregivers or just caregivers in general may feel unprepared, untrained, unsure, frustration with the situation. They may have all of these challenges, including making painful decisions for your loved one and for yourself. As the advocate for this individual, the care receiver, we have to make some choices that we may feel unprepared, but the reality is that as the caregivers, we have to make these choices in order to provide some level of support. And ultimately, we have to trust that these are the best choices for our loved one. But a lot of the times we don't feel this confidence, and there's feelings of guilt if it doesn't turn out the way we want it to.